and we do appreciate your joining us today. And we want to ask you about the news that we've all been hearing today, that Russia is saying that it will back off their word drastically in military operations around Kyiv. Can we trust them? I mean, do you believe them?
Well, if it's true and if it's sustained, that's certainly good news. My concern is that Russia may just back into Belarus, reconstitute their forces, change their mind, and come back in again.
Very disturbing thought. So let's talk back about Clara. We met Clara just a minute ago, worried about her mom in Hungary, and everybody else worried. Now, do you see any signs that Putin will attack, say, Hungary, Poland, any NATO country?
No, right now I don't see any signs that Putin would attack Hungary, Poland, or any other NATO country. He knows that a direct attack on a NATO country would be crossing the Rubicon to an all-out war with NATO. And so at this time, unless he feels that his regime, his power is at an existential threat, I think we're okay.
And that brings up, though, Article 5. As you've been hearing, 30 countries in NATO, an attack on one is an attack on all. So President Biden over the weekend in Poland said, quote, "We take Article 5 as a sacred commitment." So what would the United States be obligated to do should Putin launch a missile into Poland?
So the U.S. obligation would come from a NATO agreement to invoke Article 5, which, as you said, is collective self-defense. Now, that obligation is to act as those nations see fit to return to a secure situation. So it's an authority to use armed forces if desired, but it's not an obligation. That said, I'm convinced that if there were a direct attack on NATO countries, we would get significantly more involved militarily.
Of course, the tricky part in all this is how far will Putin go? Now, you spent years at NORAD. That's the North American Aerospace Defense Command. How is the United States right now preparing to protect itself and NATO in case Putin just keeps going wild?
Right. So we protect the United States through U.S. Northern Command, NORTHCOM, and NORAD, as you mentioned. And we do that in conjunction with Canada in the airspace. We have forces that are identified and ready to help defend the United States. And so, for example, every day there are aircraft on alert across the U.S. and Canada that are here to defend our airspace. And they routinely launch in response to Russian aircraft that head towards us. In a time of increasing threat like this, you could increase the number of those forces, you could position them in other areas and be more ready to respond.
Good to know about that preparation. We appreciate your time and your expertise. Admiral Snyder, we'll talk with you again soon. Thank you.